This is the Church of All Saints in Oakhampton. There has been a church on this site for at least 1500 years. Worship has been going on here since Saxon times. This church, however, is Victorian, as the previous building burnt down. Immediately in front of the gate is the War Memorial, and on here are named the people who gave their lives in the two wars. Oakhampton is not a large town, yet on this face of the memorial we can see the names of 60 people who died in World War I. And on two sides are the names of those who gave their lives in World War II. There are around 40 of these names. What a price for a small town to pay. An older style of stone with a very distinctive script, and this is to Thomas Lemon, who died in 1827. To the memory of Joseph Moore Jr. He died in July 1847, aged 39 years. Over at one side of the graveyard, and close to the manor house, are these two graves with iron railings round them. They presumably belong to the lords of the manor, who would have lived in that house directly behind these memorials. Looking over the metal fence of the first one, you can see, although the fence has the ability to protect the graves, it also means nobody can maintain them. So the 4 stones in here are completely covered with ivy, and we're never going to know what the names are on them. At one end of the iron railings there is an iron gate, but I don't think that's been opened for many decades. The larger one behind does have an inscription, and this one says Albany Saville Esquire of Oaklands, that is the big house behind, died in 1831, leaving a widow and 12 children to lament his irreparable loss, and so on. This one is to Charles Sydenham Carpenter, who died 1919, and then his son underneath, just Sydenham Carpenter, who was killed while minesweeping in the North Sea in 1917, aged 21. And beneath that we have his son Heaven, was killed in Kenya in 1935, and Charlie, who died in 1937. So this is the Carpenter family. And directly next to it is this one to John Carpenter, who died in 1859, aged 62. Behind those 2 stones is this one to John Sydenham Carpenter, who died in 1826, leaving a wife and 7 children. And then just down here is this small stone, and this is Ethel Susie Carpenter, 1876, aged 2 years. To the memory of Mary, the daughter of Aaron and Mary Badsley. The date there is 1816. Also to the memory of William, son of the above Aaron and Mary, late lieutenant in the Honourable East India Company's service, who died at Goa in the East Indies, aged 22 years, in 1808. This is Sarah Baker, who died in 1824, and underneath it says she was the sister of Lieutenant Colonel Rowe of His Majesty's 50th Regiment of Foot, who was buried in St Nicholas Churchyard in Bristol. And if we look at the inscription there, where the word Majesty, you can see there's a piece of stone dropped out. Now that would be because when the stonemason inscribed this, he made a mistake and he put a replacement piece of stone in that position, and when he did it, the join would not have been visible. But over the centuries, the frosts and the changes of temperature, the repair piece of stone has dropped out, and you can see exactly where he made his spelling mistake. This one is to Catherine Britton and also George Britton. What I particularly like on this stone is this wonderful sailing ship on the top of the memorial. Next to the churchyard we can see the top part of the manor house where the landowners would have lived and who probably paid a large part of the building of this church in the Victorian era. Here's another view of the wonderful old manor house. And of course they would have had their own private entrance from the house into the church grounds. In the lane outside the church entrance we still have these mounting steps. These were used in the days when people would arrive on horseback, and these steps would enable them to get on and off, mount, dismount from the horse. So here you have one dedicated to mother, brother and sister. So you've got Betsy, the widow of the late Seth Harry, and underneath we have William, their son, and Elizabeth, their daughter. Don't know what's happened to poor old Seth. He doesn't seem to be buried here. This is in a black slate-like stone with the two cherubs at the top. And it reads, "Here lieth the body of Ethel Constance, the beloved wife of Frederick Edward Compton, the vicar of Oakhampton. She was born in 1888, died in 1951. I've just noted the date on the church is 1844. This is another entrance into the church. Now notice the path here is constructed of these stones with initials and dates on, and these would have been grave markers before the actual gravestone was erected. And some of these are very early, 1673, 1681, 1677. And they're now being used as paving stones to the entrance. And unfortunately the church is locked, and there is a notice on the door about problems with consistent theft. So we're not going to be able to look inside the church today. Close by this doorway are these very early stones. This one is Thomas Bridgman Gent, and he died in 1766. They're quite interesting carvings on the top of the memorial. Quite crude. And next to it we have the one to Christopher Cunningham, the vicar rector of Lidford and vicar of North Petherin, and he died in 1792. So we're looking at a stone here which is 230 years old. And as we look around the graveyard, our eye is taken to this little memorial down here, a much smaller stone than the rest, and on it we read Ida F.N. Raymond, 1907, 11 months. This one is to the family of Trevor Roper. Trevor Roper is a name we know, a famous historian. I believe he died recently. Anyway, this is possibly relatives of his. William Trevor Roper. And underneath we have Charles Blacksney Trevor Roper. A proficient in Oriental languages, he was attached to the Cameroon Regiment as acting magistrate during the Indian Mutiny. It was 1857. He rejoined the regiment during the Abyssinian War as interpreter. Now we have the Mason's symbols, the square and the compass. And it says underneath that, a Mason of high degree and greatly esteemed by the Brotherhood. And beneath that we have his widow. So this is the Trevor Roper family. And close by the path here, we have the War Memorial grave, Commonwealth War Graves. And this is to J.S. Lee of the Devonshire Regiment. He died in 1920, aged 44. On the outside wall of the church is this very ancient memorial. It's written in Latin, but I can pick out the name Edward Cornish, and he was the vicar. And at the very bottom in Roman numerals we have the date 1715. There's a large area here which has been levelled up with some curbing, and at the very front here we simply have a plaque, a family crest, and the name on there is Luxmore. This is to Sergeant W. Whittaker of the 19th Battery RFA Royal Field Artillery, who departed this life 1910, aged 33 years and 7 months. And then underneath it reads, this stone was erected as a token of respect by his comrades of the 27th Brigade. And almost hidden in the bottom corner of the main churchyard is this one, sacred to the memory of Richard Kelly, Dartmoor Dick, 1868-1949. Presumably on the bottom corner here we have a likeness of Richard Kelly. Across the road from the church is the newer section of the churchyard. This war memorial grave is to G.B. Gardner, Royal Artillery, who died in 1940. Under the trees here is Squadron Leader C.M.G. Luxmore, Royal Air Force, late Captain in the Royal Marines, died 1944, aged 45. And then later his family have added the 2 inscriptions beneath. One to his wife, Frances, she died in 1979, and one to his son, Charles Frederick Corridon Luxmore. W.T. Vanstone, Devonshire Regiment, died in 1940. No age given on that one. On a sunny day in England, there's no nicer place than the peace of a quiet country churchyard. A spectacular display of the heather almost covering this gravestone. Tucked away in the far corner of the graveyard are these 2 war memorials. This one here is to W.J. Connor, Army Catering Corps, 1944. And across to the right, D.J. Newcomb, an observer in the Royal Air Force, 1942, aged 21. Nearby there is a 3rd section to the churchyard. This has all the modern graves and memorials. Well, there we have it. The Church of All Saints on the hill outside Oakhampton. Nothing spectacular in the way of memorials, but just a wonderful, peaceful English country churchyard. The ground is absolutely covered with flowers, and I've been the only person here as I walked around reading the memorials. It's just complete tranquility and peace. Till the next time.